Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Baum. I'm the digital health editor with MedCity News, and we're here at the MidAmerica Venture Forum in Chicago. And today, this afternoon, we're talking about the new role of strategic investors play in healthcare. I'm here with Rob Cottage, who's the Senior Vice President of Strategic Investments and Corporate Development at Cambia Health Solutions. Cambia is a nonprofit parent of insurance company Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield in Oregon and other regional plans under the Regents banner in Utah, Washington State, and Idaho. In addition to investing in companies like PocketDoc and Wildflower Health, you also have companies in your portfolio that came out of programs developed in-house, serving your members like employer wellness businesses like Hubbub Health and HealthSpark, which uses price transparency to help employer plans manage healthcare costs. And you've taken a stage-agnostic approach to the companies you've invested in. Now, last year, $6.5 billion was invested in digital health. But although that seems like a good sign, when we spoke in preparation for this conference, you voiced some concern about venture capital investment trends kind of happening beneath the surface. I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. That's certainly a very large number, and a lot of capital has flown into digital health over the course of the past couple of years. For those who've been in the industry for a long time, we know that these kind of ebbs and flows happen in irregularity, and that when you have a big flow of capital into the industry like this, the challenge is not capital access so much. It's instead, how do we prove these business models and ensure that we have sustainable new companies to serve the industry? The challenge right now is that we have a lot of great innovation happening, a lot of better mousetraps, but a lack of connection between those companies and the workflows of established businesses. Institutional healthcare is still risk averse. It's still hard to get your first sale. It's still hard to make your way through an 18 to 24 month sales cycle. So the challenge, I think, facing the industry is one that strategic investors are well suited to solve for, which is how do we get closer to the ground with our investment strategy? How do we bring innovation into the workflow? How do we connect it to where consumers are today? And how do we actually get it to scale? And so from our perspective, when capital is this plentiful and terms are this favorable to the startup community, the challenge becomes not about a capital access, but instead about pilots and proof of concept. So that's where strategic investors can and should play big.
Okay. Now, do you see the role of strategic investors in healthcare changing since Obamacare was passed?
Oh yeah, it's a great question, and we could ask this a lot. Like, what about your strategy has changed since Obamacare? And to be perfectly frank, we're on the same path we would have been historically if Obamacare hadn't happened. The underlying breakdown of the healthcare system is the same now as it was before. Obamacare has just cast it into a very fine light, in that health plans now and delivery systems soon are going to realize that we're on a burning platform and that change and innovation is needed, not just around the edges, but in the core of our businesses. So we have a lot of work to do to go figure out how to identify what that new business model is for each of us and how we actually bring it into the heart of our company, not kind of hold it at the fringes. So from our investment strategy and that of many strategics, many who are here at this conference, we're doing a lot more than we would have been before Obamacare because of how aware we have become about the burning platform that we're on. But even if Obamacare went away tomorrow, I think many of us, and certainly Cambia, would still be on the same path forward to build a different kind of business to serve consumers in a new way in a healthcare market that looks very different in 10 years.
Okay, and how does that inform how Cambia's approach is evolved?
Yeah, well, we've been at this now at our business of bringing together new solutions for consumers in healthcare for 95 years. And if you look at the work we've been doing in diversification, we've been at this work for 12 to 15 years. But really, the strategic investment program that I oversee has been on the ground for 4.5 years, and we've been learning a lot as we've ramped this program up. Our program's sort of a learning lab, if you will, where we're looking at best practices from others in the industry, both in the financial investor community and the strategic investor community, and trying to bring those lessons and those ways of doing business into ours. So when we launched 4 years ago, I'd say we launched with a very solid platform and a very solid way of doing business. But I think we're a lot more, there's been a lot that we've learned since we launched. And if you look at our company, even the process that we're going through now to refine how innovation and new business models get baked into the lifeblood and the workflow of our core business, there's a lot of work that's underway now that'll make us look very different 12 months from now. So I'd say there's been a lot of active learning over the past 4 years.
And you were saying that there are a lot of things happening that's going to make you look very different 12 months from now.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little
Totally.
bit?
So some of the panelists earlier today were talking about how consumers are going to experience the healthcare system differently. And that's an opportunity that I think strategic investors have where financial investors don't, is to bring together these solutions in new and novel ways for the consumer. I think you're going to see groups like Cambia and others begin to think about the consumer experience in wholly new ways in healthcare, and how we don't think about healthcare innovation as a collection of point solutions, but how we bring to the consumer and to the enterprise collections of assets and tools in ways that serve a unique set of needs very differently than solution aggregators do in this day and age.
Now, one question I had was, and I guess there are probably a lot of strategics that wrestle with this issue, is how do you balance the needs of the startups and the early stage companies that you work with the priorities that you have and the interests of like a payer like Regence, Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Yeah, balancing the needs of a portfolio and the needs of a core legacy business are at the heart of the challenges that face strategic investors and corporate investors. And we're not alone in kind of navigating these challenges. If you look around, even in this room today, there are many different models of corporate investment that answer that question very, very differently. We heard on the panel earlier colleagues who were saying that their investment strategy is predicated on a commercial relationship between the startup company or the innovative company and their core business. That is decidedly not the approach we have taken. So whereas we are very aware of the value that our Regence, Blue Cross Blue Shield health plans can bring to a conversation with an innovative new company, we do not predicate, or we really don't even bake into our analysis of a new investment whether or not it patches a vendor hole or a capability gap for our health plan. Instead, we start with, does this company enable us to serve our cause and mission more effectively? Cambia was started and has followed a mission-driven strategy since its origin 100 years ago. And today that cause is to transform the healthcare system to make it more economically sustainable and person-centric. And we say person-centric because we want to draw the distinction between the institutionally centric system we have now. So we look for companies that can help consumers, employers, providers, health plans build to that system that has taken cost out and better align the system around the individual, the consumer. And we don't start with, do we have a commercial contract for that company with our health plan? Oftentimes that happens, but that's not a requirement. And we feel that frees us and liberates us to invest in true innovation, true strategic investment, not just tactically investing in things that solve yesterday's problem.
Okay. And just sort of on that point, how do healthcare startups stand to benefit from this approach that you're taking?
Yeah, no, I mean,
maybe you could use a couple examples.
Sure, we think a lot about that because if you think about the challenge, go back to the $6.5 billion that have been invested in digital health and the space between those companies and their aspirations and where the market is now. We think that the biggest value that we can bring to our portfolio companies is the support that they need, both through subject matter expertise, a really active involvement in their board, a very active involvement as advisors, and what we've built as a business development capability to support and extend the biz dev activities of those companies. So for example, we work very closely with each of our portfolio companies with a dedicated business development team that sits inside my shop that helps those companies get to market in our 4 states where our health plan is active, with our health plan as a client, with delivery system partners as a client or other enterprises in those markets, that biz dev team has also supported those companies in being able to go out to other channel distribution opportunities nationally, whether it be other health plans, other blues, large employers. And we think that hands-on involvement in creating and fulfilling the value prop is the biggest value that we can bring to our companies in addition to capital.
Okay. Okay, and I think we've written about this at MedCity News. You're also launching an initiative with startups called Cambia Grove.
Oh yeah.
And how does that fit into your overall strategy? And like, how many startups are you hoping to?
Well, it's a great question. We're opening the Cambia Grove this week in Seattle, and there'll be an event on Thursday night in Seattle where we're going to have over 100 startups in the space. The Cambia Grove is actually a physical place in Seattle, which we are creating not to support our corporate ends and not to support our portfolio companies, but to create a common table in a local regional market where we can bring together health plans, delivery systems, large employers, academic institutions, and startups to think about common problems that can be addressed. As Naomi Fried said earlier, start with the problem. And so we're bringing together these stakeholders to identify shared and endemic and large-scale problems that the startup community should and could be solving, and then bringing startups to bear against those challenges. We are not viewing it as an incubator or an accelerator. We have no economic interest in the companies that come through the Grove. Some of our companies may be there, but that's not the intention. The intention is that we create a place in Seattle where startup healthcare companies can go to find not just capital, but also those proof of concepts and pilots I mentioned earlier. So we're launching with University of Washington Medicine, which is a large delivery system in our market, the Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield plan in Washington State, Q-Liance as a delivery system partner in Washington, and we're making some more announcements on Friday about new anchor partners. All of them will have an invested interest in bringing new pilots to market quickly in Washington State.
Okay.
And so I guess one thing, just to make sure I answer the question that you asked, how does that fit with our strategy? We view that as a logical extension of the biz dev support that we've brought to our portfolio, making sure that we figure out how to connect innovative startups to real pilot opportunities. That's integral to sort of bridging the gap between where we are now and fulfilling the opportunity of the market for our own portfolio, but also for the market at large.
Okay. And how long do you expect that program to be? How?
Yeah, that program it's not structured like an accelerator or incubator program. It is it's an ongoing program that will be, the center is open every day in Seattle. We encourage anyone who's listening to this to view it as their home in that market. There's space for offices that are available to anyone who's passing through town. We've invited all the investors that we know to view it as their outpost in the Northwest. And we think that Seattle's a market that's known for Starbucks that viewed itself as the third place. We think that this can be the third place for healthcare and healthcare, digital health and healthcare information technology entrepreneurs to go and build and scale their companies.
Sure. Now, part of this conversation is supposed to be about looking ahead to the future of strategic investment in healthcare. Venture capital firms get criticized for their kind of short-term thinking in healthcare.
Sure.
Healthcare has a much longer sales cycle than a typical technology. The technology sector. Do you see? It sounds like, from what I've heard at this conference, that we're seeing a shift in the way that corporate investors work with these companies. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think the opportunity now for strategic investors is huge. And I think more than the opportunity, we have an obligation to actually step up to the plate and do our jobs differently than we have historically. There is a huge amount of baggage that strategic investors bring to the table when they come. We have a history of being slow. We have a history of confusing our corp dev priorities with our investment priorities, such that it's sometimes questionable for entrepreneurs to think, are we going to be a spy and at their board table? Are we trying to get them on the cheap? Are we trying to pursue our own corporate interests over theirs? And so we think that in a market like this, whereas we pointed to the froth earlier, but there's going to be a trough that will follow the froth when many of the aspirational investors who come into the space to chase the next big thing find the space to be a little more difficult to build and scale companies in. We see this happen every time, that then capital becomes scarce, not frothy and available. And during a period of capital scarcity, strategic investors are going to play a very, very important role, a more important role than they've ever played in the space, because we are now playing a larger role as limited partners in healthcare funds. Many of us have our own direct investment team set up internally, and we're certainly playing an active role as syndicate partners with traditional financial investors. So as we do that, we have to think about this as a long-term investment that we're making in our own teams, that we're making in the space, such that we can actually do the service that we need to the entrepreneurs that we're investing in. That has not been the case historically with investors in this space, except for a few notable exceptions. And we have an obligation now, I think, to step forward and raise our game to meet this opportunity, or else there'll be a dearth of risk capital, a dearth of venture capital, and a dearth of limited partners investing in investors that are supporting the space. And I say that may feel like a weird thing to say when there's so much venture capital flowing into the market, but I think there's going to be a time very, very soon where, and I would hate to be the one that has to call the timing on this, when that market changes. And so as we talk about internally, we've staked out a place on the beach, and we love buying. We have a vacation property in a very desirable place right now in the healthcare investment world. But at some point, the summer tourists go away, and during that winter, we have to figure out what the sustainable business model is for us as investors and for early stage companies in this space overall. And I think that requirement, that obligation, falls to strategic investors.
Okay, we've got a little bit more time left, and one thing we haven't talked about at all yet is how you guys work with angels
Sure.
and angel syndicates. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, because we're a stage agnostic investor. We invest from the seed stage all the way through to late stage investing. And so we certainly have a demonstrated record now of working with all kinds of other investors, whether it be traditional venture investors or whether it be angel investors. We especially in the healthcare space, we want to make sure that when a startup comes to us with a base of angel investors, that they are bringing a lot of value to the table. And so we've seen an increasing sophistication in the healthcare seed investing world, where you have angel syndicates that actually are well organized and bring a lot of value to companies. And so we like co-investing with those groups, and we've done a lot of it recently.
Okay. Just trying to think. Are there any companies that you've invested in recently where you've invested with an angel syndicate? Or does that reflect that?
Sure. We've had a lot of investment recently in the senior services space. We think that's an opportunity that has not been addressed well by traditional investors, and historically in healthcare, we've approached senior services as a bricks and mortar business. We think there's a lot of technology innovation that's happening out there that can be brought to bear to help seniors and their families. So we've made an investment recently in CareMerge, a company based here in Chicago, in TrueLink, based in San Francisco, in Lively, it's based in San Francisco, and in ClearCare, based in San Francisco. All of them addressing different elements of caring for seniors and their families, some of them in institutions and some of them at home.
Okay. I mean, rounding out, do you ever have opportunities to collaborate with other corporate investors?
We do, and we relish the opportunity to co-invest with other corporate investors. It's one of the biggest challenges that we have as a corporate investor, is to find syndicate partners who have a shared timeline and investment horizon to ours. Because we're stage agnostic, we have the opportunity to back a management team across stages and to really support them to maximize the value of their company at exit. And so as we think about that, we most closely align from a time horizon and strategy perspective with other strategic investors. We've done that a number of times in LifeNexus, most recently with a Blue of North Carolina. But we also then, as part of our call to action earlier, we think that strategic investors who are making these kinds of direct investments to be able to be a sustainable syndicate partner need to think about their business a little bit differently and need to be thinking about how we as an industry can compete effectively with financial investors and partner effectively with financial investors because we have the right professional teams, investment horizons, and capabilities internally.
All right, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much.